Mushies, welcome back to another vlog. This is Ducktales Season 2, Episodes 10 and 11, The Golden Spear and Nothing Can Stop Della Duck. I mean, wow. Crying over cartoon ducks was not on my agenda for today, but this close to happening. I mean, I'm a sucker for parent presumed dead coming back. That's just a story beat that never fails to get me. But still, when Della and her kids see each other for the first time, all three of their reactions, I've never felt as much sympathy for Louis as I do with this. He is suspicious and protects himself because he doesn't want to get hurt. And it makes you think about, is that why he's so callous all of the time? That he's protecting himself by not caring? It's a bit much, I think, to say that he's, that his mom not being around causes that behavior. For starters, while that is a way in which someone could respond to a trauma, he doesn't actually have a trauma. Never meeting a parent is very different from having and losing a parent. Certainly they had a parent figure. At this point they have multiple parent figures. So the lack of a mom specifically, not to say it's nothing, but it's not actually a trauma in their lives. It's not an overwhelming stressor. It's just a feature of their growing up. Because they never met her. She was gone before they hatched. Which is a weird thing to say, So much of our fiction kind of assumes mammals. I really hope you can't hear that banging. I don't know what my neighbor across the way is doing, but it's loud. So much of our fiction assumes mammals, So saying, their mother left before they were born is such a weird sentence. But our fiction assumes mammals and, cis heteronormativity too. Because, of course, someone's mother could leave before they were born if their birth parent were either a woman in a same-sex relationship or a trans man who got pregnant and was in a relationship with a woman. But you know what I'm trying to say. There's assumptions built into most of our fiction. And one of those assumptions is, that mothers give live birth to their children, and therefore, the sentence, their mother left before they were born, is a weird one to say. But nonetheless, it is true here. So At the same time, though, this is someone they've been hearing about all their lives. They've grown up with her absence from Donald and Scrooge's life. They didn't know about it. They didn't know the details, they didn't know the specifics, but they knew enough. They knew enough that Dewey immediately recognized her when he saw her picture. They knew enough that and they knew what Donald was like with her absence. It was only later they learned out that what he used to be like. But, him being very protective, Scrooge being very distant, these are consequences of her being gone. And they grew up with that. And so her coming back is still this momentous emotional thing for them. She's a figure of legend to them. And now she's here and real. And it's something that, we never see much. They don't really seem to have friends, but presumably they do somewhere out there. At the very least, presumably there are other members of Huey's troupe. I'm pretty sure we've seen them at some point. So certainly they've seen other kids with moms. And so they recognize it as something they never had, and now they do. And that's an emotional experience for them. To say nothing of the experience from Della's side. I think I'm connecting a little more with the boys because I've been a child, I've never been a parent. Never will be. But from Della's side, she's been trying to get back to her boys for so long, and she's built up in her head so much, and she has felt their absence keenly, and she's felt the absence of her family keenly. And I'm actually getting emotional talking about this. She's been alone, and now all of a sudden she's not. She has a family again. For most of a decade, she was entirely alone. She had the Moon People briefly, for a few weeks at most, there at the end. But she barely knew them. Now, all of a sudden, she's back with the people she was trying to get back to. And it's a struggle, And I feel that, and I feel for her. Because that's always what gets me emotional. Stuff can get super sad, and I'm like, It's when something good happens after an enormous struggle. That's when I get emotional. When it's at the moment of eucatastrophe. That's when I get emotional. The cathartic moments. That's when it happens to me. Otherwise, we're clearly, the plot is moving forward with, are the Moon People called Lunarians? Did I make that up? I think I asked that in a previous episode. I'm not sure. But call them the Lunarians are headed for, they're building a fleet. They've captured Donald. They are preparing for war upon the Earth, though they've been tricked into it. And we've actually got kind of an interesting reversal where Penny, who was being built up as, if not a villain, at least a kind of antagonistic figure to Della, now she's very clearly, from her facial expressions, questioning Lunaris's decision to essentially trick the people into war in order to prove the greatness of their nation. I actually, that's a blatantly obvious political dig, but at the same time, it's just off enough that the kind of parent who would complain about it, I don't think is very likely to catch it. And that is well done on the part of the show. I mean, obviously, a show about an uber capitalist that uses his vast fortune to go on adventures with his family is never going to be the most progressive thing on television. But little moments like that help make it clear that it is at least not letting that kind of stuff go uncommented upon. You know? And I mean, there's really only two ways you can go with an invasion, with a war where we are on one side. You know, the sympathies of the audience are on one side. You can make the other side faceless enemy evil. You can make them generic foreigners. You can dehumanize them. Or you can make them more human. You can even make them more like us in some particular way. Because then we're a little bit torn. You know, they're being tricked into war. We have some sympathy for that. We still see them as people. And that's important because the embrace of the other is clearly a theme that the show is playing with the Lunarians plot. You know, it started with the Moonlight and the discovery that, you know, they were just trying to feed their children and it was possible to come to a totally peaceful resolution and that they weren't monsters. And paralleling that with the Lunarians having to learn to accept Della. And now you've got Della, you get Penny learning to accept Della and connect to her, and the Lunarians learning to accept her despite her otherness. And then, you know, she leaves, and so now the Lunarians are going to be positioned as the other as they attack Earth. But the whole problem is Lunaris, who sees an other, sees the Earth, and sees something that must either be feared or conquered. Because he cannot comprehend coexisting with difference without conquering or being conquered. Either Earth is superior and the Lunarians must cower in fear below it, or the Moon is superior and the Earth must be made to cower before them to prove their superiority. He doesn't appear to get that there is a third option, which is that they are different and incommensurable and incommensurable. And I think that's the word. I'm now tripping over my own words. They're different and cannot be directly weighed against each other. So that there is no meaningful way in which to say one is superior or one is inferior. And there is also no actual need for any kind of conflict between them. But he can't wrap his head around that possibility. It doesn't occur to him. And that's pretty typical authoritarian thinking, I gotta say. That really is how authoritarians think. They are focused very much on the idea of dominance, and that those are your options: dominate or be dominated. There are other options. People have relationships all the time in which no one dominates. There are also, consensual relationships in which somebody does dominate, but those are consensual. Relationships in which somebody dominates non-consensually we call abusive, and they're not okay, but they're also not the norm, and there's absolutely no reason that can't be scaled up. There's no reason that one country must dominate over another, one community, one people. Coexistence is a thing. Anyway, I'm kind of starting to repeat myself, so I think that's about it. I hope you all enjoyed that. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Patreon for early access to vlogs, essays, let's plays, and more. And I'll see you all next time. Bye!